Imagine a world where men stepped up and answered God's call to reach their full potential. Imagine a world where men put their faith and trust in God unwaveringly and without qualification. Imagine a world where men lived out God's purpose for them in everything they do. It's Not My Credit to Take explores the awe and wonder of how God shows up in the lives of strong, principled Christian men from all walks of life. Get ready to laugh, to cry, and to be transformed. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Slover, faithful husband, loving father, loyal friend, and unapologetically Christian. Welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast.
Hey, Doug, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for taking time out of your day to have this conversation. My guest today is Doug Carpenter. Doug is the husband of my cousin on my mother's side and lives by the motto, let's make the second half of life better than the first. I just love that. Since 2019, he served as a facilities maintenance specialist for Christian Life Center in Dayton, Ohio. Prior to this work, Doug was a route sales representative for 8 years at Aramark. In August 2022, this is so cool, he completed his educational journey having earned a college degree in business administration and management after a long hiatus from school. Doug describes this as one of the most rewarding things to complete, especially considering he was working full-time and had 2 small kids at home. It really is such an accomplishment that really can't be understated. And Doug's been married to his wife, my cousin Courtney, for 14 years, and they have 2 kids. Doug, once again, welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast.
Well, it's nice to be here. Nice to actually finally meet you and talk to you. I have heard much about you over the years, and have gotten to meet your mother and sister and been around them a little bit. So it's good to finally see you and meet you.
Yeah, put a face and a voice to the name. I have no idea how they would have represented me. It's probably more accurate than I would have represented myself.
Yeah. Don't all our loved ones do that?
Yeah. I mean, talk about grace and mercy. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up as the husband of my cousin Courtney.
Well, that was just by pure luck, so to speak. And she would love to be here. So tell the story that I had a friend beg me to go out because some people he worked with were meeting up. And so she was on the other side of that friend from up here. And she went out. I begged and pleaded not to go. I had hurt my knee the week before. My buddy was like, I'm not going alone. So we're out. I'm not saying anything. I know Courtney has told the story 100 times to her friends, but she always said to her friend that was out, you can have the tall one because he doesn't seem to have a personality. And here we are 17 years later. So
that's funny. That's Courtney, but that's funny. So, I mean, you say you've been, 17 years later, but you've been married 14. And before we jumped on the recording, you said, but Courtney counts those other 3 years.
She does. She had a lot of work cut out for her, and she put a lot of work in. So she says she wants credit for those years. She wants them added to her retirement plan, so to speak.
But that runs counter to the title of this podcast. So I'm gonna have to give her some swag. For those of you who aren't watching this on YouTube, I have, and it's not my credit to take T-shirt that I had made. So take us back further. Did you grow up in a Christian household? What was your early experiences, coming to Christ?
I did not grow up in a Christian household with a mother and father. They separated at a very young age. So, most of the time I was with my mother, staying with her parents, a lot of it. And we're not church, so to speak. And then on the weekends I'd go with my dad, but he had to work on Saturdays, not stay with his parents. His parents were longtime Christians within the church, did a lot of things. So there was a small input right there with them having a church background, being very faithful to their church. So I knew of it, but I was not involved with it at all. with my upbringing and all. So it kind of was always something there in the back of your head. But I lived life through a young man, through the, coming up in a separated household. I would say when I was about 15 or 16, I became a very angry young man. My parents had, I've done a lot of thinking about this actually, and my parents had gotten new families. My dad waited until he was, I graduated and he married. My mom had already remarried, so I had a stepmom and stepdad. But unfortunately, the relationship wasn't as good as you'd like it to be on both sides. I'm sure I will take a good bit of the responsibility. I was difficult to deal with. I was looking for some attention anywhere I could get it, I guess you'd say. And you know what? I was probably doing things I definitely shouldn't. It was a long time going on with that I probably, still to this day, I don't go back to high school reunions because I'm pretty ashamed of how I acted at that time and doing things.
Yeah. So how were you able to end up reconciling the anger that you experienced, having come from not only a broken home of your folks divorcing at such a young age, but then having to adapt to new family dynamics times two? How are you able to put that anger down and be able to move forward with your life?
Well, I don't even think I could until maybe about in my 30s. Uh, when I first, my mother and my stepfather, I have a couple of brothers now. When I was 16, my mom became pregnant, and so I have brothers that are 16 years younger than I am, and I think even obviously as a couple having a couple of twin boys, they had a lot going on with them, and so I kind of went off to the side. And my father moved to the Westchester area, which is about a half hour south of where I grew up, and so I guess I really didn't, and I was pretty aggravated. I did all kinds of stuff, and it took a while. Your cousin and I, we got together, and I remember there would be times where, as a whole in life, I told her, I was like, I don't know if there's God. It doesn't matter to me. I care less what happens. I'm just going to do what I need to do. And I was so aggravated at things. It took a long time, to be honest, to get to a point where I was okay with things. Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned engaging in attention-seeking behavior at a young age, and I can only imagine how difficult that was for you, especially when dealing with your mom and stepdad having twin babies, and in addition to having, I'm sure, full-time jobs and all sorts of other obligations, and plus your time was relatively split between your mom and dad. What type of attention-seeking behavior were you engaging in, and what were some of the outcomes from that?
About anything you could do that would be destructive, rude towards someone, or doing things that was just over the top in any situation, just to gain. I used to just do things that I do not even want to repeat, to be honest with you. But if you could just think of the most outlandish, worst things, and was at the time I was pretty destructive towards myself, and without having, I didn't care whether I lived or died, to be honest. And so even sending my car after jumping it off a hill into a soybean field, because I was just doing anything I could to get attention, I guess.
Yeah. So fast forward to meeting Courtney.
Yeah.
And what role did she play, at the early stages of your relationship, and even to this day, to help you with your faith walk and move beyond the perspective that you didn't know there was a God, but now you're a believer? What was that evolution like for you?
Well, when I first met her, and kind of getting to know her family and coming into it, it was quite a different setting than what I was accustomed to. Even for something as much as the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, they're already they have a nucleus family. There's mom and dad together, and brother and sister come about, and I can remember there was a holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, I can't remember, and I was there. It was early on, year 1 or 2, year 2. They're all sitting over in their living room area looking at a photo album of something. I can't even remember what it was, but I remember just like going through my head, like, is this what this is like? I'm like looking over there, like, so I think it was like a little bit of jealousy actually when I first. I was like, man, this seems now, I was like, wow. So until you get to know them, get in there and everything like that, just from an outsider looking in, I was just jealous. And she kind of had more of a stable background than I did. So I think that was a great start for me to kind of maybe slow down and take a look at things. It also helped that where we live in Troy is a half hour from where I was from. So it kind of removed me from all my friends, from the people I was hanging out with. So I didn't go back down there very often. So I was kind of up here in this new area, even though it was only a half hour away. I wasn't around the people. So I would go to work and come home and be with her and her family many times. I don't know how many countless nights we just hung out with her parents, and it was fantastic. So I believe that stabilizing factor kind of started maybe even this ball getting into an emotion as becoming more of just a real well-rounded person. So it was very, very influential for her being here and us meeting to leading down this path. We got together, and then I think just as we were getting married, my family and hers, we came together. We got married at the church here in Troy. And then it wasn't 6 months later, the grandparents of the Christian grandparents I spoke of, my father's side, my grandfather was pronounced with a brain tumor. And so we were going through that. It was a very, very, very tough time for us. And my cousin was getting married that night. Courtney was with me. We were at a wedding reception for him, and we had gotten a phone call that he seemed like he was going to pass that night. So we left there. Several other family members did as well, and we all convened at their house and was talking and waiting. And it got late in the early morning hours, and they sent my grandmother. They were 84 at the time. In age, and they sent her to bed, and we were waiting, and the nurse / one of our cousins was there. It seemed he had taken his last breath, and so she went over with a stethoscope, and she was checking his pulse, and she just shook her head, and so we knew at the time. So they go wake my grandmother out of bed, bring her back to him, and this took a few minutes. And so, like I said, we were all sitting there waiting, a lot of us crying, and she crawled into bed with him. And I can't explain it, but he took the biggest gas breath you ever seen and lived for another 24 hours.
You're kidding.
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was what made me stop saying, I don't care, to, okay, there's something. What is it? I don't know. At the time, I didn't know at that time, but that was probably what made me go, okay, what's going on? And so it was his final gift to me.
That is, one of the words I've been trying to delete from my vocabulary is unbelievable. And so I almost said it.
Yeah.
because anything related to the Lord is believable. How long were they married?
Uh, I want to say around 60 years. He'd gotten out of the war, World War II, and they met here in Dayton. So it was around 46. He died in 2010. So they got together. Both came out of Kentucky in the 40s. They were both born 25 and 27, I think it was. And so they came out of Kentucky. He went to World War II, freed Dachau with his armored tank division. Came home.
Wow.
They got married, and had my father and his brothers and sisters. So they joined a church for 55 years. I think they were heavily involved. I mean, I can remember Tuesdays and Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. That's where they'd be, no doubt about it. So it was his parting gift to me for sure. And I told my grandmother, she just recently passed this past fall. And I told her, if it wasn't for all the times you were praying, trust me, I would be dead. I would absolutely be dead. But she used to tell us all the time, she would say, I'm praying for you boys, because when we go with them to church as a younger man, my uncles and my cousins and I, for Mother's Day, her birthday, his birthday, the special occasions that you, whether you believe or anything like that, you go for your grandparents. And I remember the pastor always saying, they're the Carpenter boys, and so she always knew we were there. She always said she did. So between the two of them and that parting gift, I mean, it was the thing that got me, really just to the ball rolling. Finally, I stopped saying, I don't care. I wouldn't even said I would have been an atheist, because as atheist, at least you had to have some kind of ground to stand on that you didn't. I just didn't care. And he left a gift that has just flourished. Thankful.
So during this time, you had a change of environment.
Yeah.
You were 30 minutes north of where you grew up, and all of the external forces that were pressing on you that, if I internalized it correctly, were having a less than favorable impression on you.
Sure.
You meet Courtney, you see what it means to have a solid family structure. Subsequently, your grandfather gives you this final gift. What was next for you? You started asking the questions, like, okay, there's something here, and you started caring. What were some of those next steps for you in coming to the Lord?
I would say, thinking about coming to the Lord and getting to that point, Courtney and I, that was in 2010. We did start. I just started thinking about things a lot more, and coming up with, okay, there's something going on. And I used to just say, okay, there's something, I don't understand it. We would have discussions. I was the first one to say, well, if so-and-so was a good person, I mean, that just means, and she was actually more versed than I was. And she goes, no, just not a good person can do it. That just doesn't work that way. And I was like, well, I get that there's something else. And so we, having these discussions and going from there, really helped, maybe curiosity, try to understand. And I would say that we had these discussions, and we started going with her father's parents to their church in a little town in Covington, which is a real tiny town.
Yeah.
There's probably 50 people in the church, and the average age was 65 years old. And
Sounds about right.
And we would go sit with them every Sunday at the little church there in Covington, and there was a pastor there by the name of Greg, and he was fantastic. He really wasn't what I was used to at my grandparents' church, which was more fire and brimstone. And it was more a learning education for me that there's another way of doing this. My grandparents, bless them, but their pastor was very fire and brimstone, hitting the pulpit and coming after you. And so this was another way of seeing things. It was really enjoyable. I remember that was the first time we would leave on Sunday mornings from there, and it just felt like a refreshing feeling, just maybe I never even had before. We were just leaving. I remember so relaxing, sitting there with Frank and Joyce and listening to the pastor talk and everything like that. It's fantastic. Though I think the next thing that got my brain even more wired was we were about to have our first child, and we're going there. Everything's going well, and I can't explain it. Maybe it's pretty normal for parents, but we went to a special 4D place in Dayton to watch our son's heartbeat on the monitor and all that. And something about that heartbeat all of a sudden made the final floodgates just come open for me. It really was. and after then we had our child. We began, unfortunately, wanting to look for a place to raise our child in, and there were no children at this church, lovely church, but there were no children, and we knew if we need to have a place with like-minded people that wanted to have Christian values to raising their children, and so we began our search, which was it took a few stops to really find where we were at. I would say that final heartbeat was what drew me in or opened the floodgates, I guess, that the Lord had been keeping me alive for some reason or another for a long time, and that he had finally won the battle at that point.
Yeah. So when did you ultimately get saved?
In May of 2016. So Carter was born in 2015. We went to several churches. They were fine churches. I remember her librarian had been inviting us to their church, and it was a larger church. And we come from 50 people, most of them in their 60s, sweet people. And to go to a place that has, on average on the weekends around 2,000, that just seemed like a lot. And so we we hesitantly, that weekend, I think it was Easter weekend of 2016, went down on a Saturday night service because it was a little smaller. And we walked in, they were just very welcoming. I remember that's what we talk about the most is, we went to a couple churches, we went in, came out, nobody even knew we were there. But This place stopped us. How you doing? What's your name? Can we do anything? It was fantastic. And so we wanted to, go back. I don't think it was much longer that we got baptized there. And together we did it on that weekend, and it was quite amazing. It was quite the journey. When I think about getting to that point, even was just amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So from that point forward, so you've been saved 7 years. Yes,
I still consider myself a adolescent baby.
I hear you, brother. I don't even know if I'm adolescent. I think I'm still a baby in my Christian walk, for sure. But when you talk about God, what do you talk about?
I am still, in amazement that he took me, who was, I say I got like the Paul effect. I may have not been murdering people and everything, but for who I was and where he has brought me to, it is just amazing. I think of, I at a time where I didn't care if I lived or died. And all of a sudden here I am working at a church. It's rather astounding to me, but it allows you to know that anything is possible if you believe in the Lord. What you have to have a wholehearted faith that you need to, stay with it. As I said, working for the church, and then that was another step. We got baptized there. I had a fine job that had, a pension plan, union. I was great, good to go. Courtney and I, she's a teacher, so she has her state teachers. There was just a plan. We were going to sit there for 30 years. both get our pensions, grow old, sit in the rocking chair. That was life. And I remember I was driving up and down the highway there in front of the church, going to a place, a job, and for my company. And our pastor that weekend, he had said that there's this Right Now Media. It's kind of like a Netflix for Christian videos. He's like, go there because you belong to our church and you're a member here. You can get onto there and watch videos, check it out. There's some great content that you might enjoy. I remember I was like I said, I was working. I was like, well, let's see about this. And I'm on the church's website. I was like, where did he say it was? And I saw employment, and curiosity killed the cat. I just went, is there another pastor? What's going on? Let's see what's the guy. And they had a couple different, they had, this opening, that opening, and they had facilities maintenance. From my years past working at different locations, it's like I texted Courtney a snapshot of it. I said, I could do this. I said, this would be fun. I was like, that'd be great if I retire, I get a job like this or something like that. And I said, that'd be fantastic. And she replied with, apply. And I said, honey, we're off my insurance, the money I make, the pension, it'd be nice, but no. She goes, apply. And I fought her tooth and nail. I was like, no. She's like, apply. So she goes, what's going to talk to him? Talk to him. I said, fine. But no, we use my insurance. It's perfect. It's the best you can get. Good pay, you got pension. I'll talk to him. Talk to him. It was fantastic. I enjoyed it so much. My boss, great guy, huge. It was fantastic. Even meet him, coworkers. I was like, that would be great. I said, they're fantastic people. What else can I say? She goes, well, you take it. And I said, Courtney, we cannot. I had my nails in. I was like, we are not doing this. We're set up. We're good. And she goes, we'll figure it out. It'll work. We'll just trust. We'll trust. I was like, I know we got to trust, but it's tough. Yeah. She kept on and pushing. And so I did it. And we took the step. Luckily, she has a lot more faith than I do. Because I would tell you, I was scared at first. I was like, how are we going to do this? Because what some of you may not know, when you go to work for a church, whatever you think you are going to make, you just don't make that much, and it's fine. But it worked out. We are doing just fine, actually even better, I would say. We find out what you really need and what you really don't in your life. And so you make it work. But then going to work for the church, which I was nervous about, to say the least, because I knew my background. My coworkers seem like they're just all fantastic people, all from the weekend team, from the kids team. It's like I said, it's the largest church, so we have several different teams, and so the communications team, they're all great people. And I was like, oh, what am I doing in here? I was like, oh. So just being involved in that setting has even propelled me. So every morning I make sure I listen to a portion of the Bible. I do a Bible study on that. It's snowballed into effect for me that I want to do things even better and try to even learn more. I'm reading every piece of everything I can. Like I said, I still can't believe that, and I am where I am. And I sent you my LinkedIn ad, and a friend of mine from high school some time ago emailed or messaged me on LinkedIn and to kind of say, and it's not nice, but he goes, and I knew him from school, and he was a nice guy. And he goes, you have, and in the message he goes, you have to tell me, give me a call sometime. I need to know. I knew he grew up in the Christian faith and he was churched, but he goes, I need to know your story. And he goes, because my final memory of you in high school was of you punching me. And so, so I was like, oh man, here it goes. I was like, this is where it all comes crumbling down. And so I called him. We had a fantastic half hour, 45-minute talk, kind of going back over things and new things, how you been, what's going on. Told him effectively the story that I'm telling you, give or take. And he was very supportive. It was a very nice conversation.
Yeah.
So it has been amazing. I was fantastic. I was able to reconnect with him, even kind of make amends and apologize, but he was all about it. He was fantastic. It was nice to talk with him. Even so much as, as I said in my past, and it keeps even extending. It just is, it's exponential. Everything I keep putting into this, with the support of my wife and everything, with church, I've gotten some amazing friends, amazing friends. And in the church, has asked me to go into a succession plan with my boss to become the facility manager of the whole property.
That's awesome.
Yes, and that's what led to me going back to church or to school, which I did not think I even had the capability of. I did a little bit of college when I first got out. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was acting up. I was enjoying the extracurriculars of college way more than going to any class. So I was like, how am I going to, at 38 years old, go back to school and finish my degree? And a 4 and 6 year old, how's that going to work? And with the encouragement I was getting at work through my boss, of course at home, Courtney was stepping up and doing so much extra, helping out, where I usually help on the chores. She was going above and beyond, got through it. And that's why I said at my 40, I'm like, all right, I've given a new chance on life. So I'm going to take and make the second half better than the first.
Love that motto. Love that motto. And as you're walking through all of that, Doug, and I have literal goosebumps in just being able to observe through your story how much you're loved. How much you're loved, not only by God, you know that, but the family that's around you, your church family, it's awesome to learn. And I do one other comment before the next question, and it's that I know I can relate to those moments where you're being brought into an environment where people might be more mature or have more expertise on a particular topic, and it's really easy to feel like a fraud. Imposter syndrome's a thing. And one thing that has allowed me to reconcile those moments is like, well, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't ready enough. I'm not ready because I haven't done it yet, but maybe I can talk myself into being ready enough. And so along those lines, if you were a mentor to the teenage version of yourself, what would you say to him?
Yeah, the kid that hit 16 and really took a turn. I think about past changes. So I was like I said, I was out of control, and a lot of my friends went to the military, and I was actually I was so involved in partying, to be honest with you. I thought, this is terrible to say out loud, that it's literally felt when a lot of my friends went to our Air National Guard and the weekend things, and I said, what have I missed out on this party? There's no way. That was my advice. That was to myself, and I think of me in my early 20s, and I did a lot of different jobs because I was just trying to make it to the weekend to have fun, and I've been so aggravated at myself for a very long time over certain things. But as to give advice, the terrible things I did to people, to cars, to machinery, I honestly think I don't know if I have the right to give myself advice or change anything, because now I have a different set of views, but I have experiences that many people maybe don't have, and maybe that's what God needed me to have at this time, at this place, working where I'm working, involved with the people there. I think that everything I want to change, I don't know if I could. I think it may have been what he wanted me to have, just to go through to have this different view of things and this experience. because there are certain people that I can talk to that others can't, because I've been through that or done that, and they can't because they don't have those experiences. So maybe this is who he needs to be sitting right here and not change it for him.
Yeah. And now you're a dad, and you get to help steward the lives of your kids in a time in our culture that is more and more anti-God,
Oh,
quite confusing for young people. Have you given thought to what that looks like in terms of how you're going to help them navigate, some of the potential pitfalls that exist in society?
every day, every day. I think about it because we have two awesome kids. They are just awesome. We are blessed. They listen well. They're right here with us. So we talk about all the time. We make sure we sit down at this table I'm sitting at right now. Most nights of the week, I'm not going to tell you we're good at every night, but most nights, 4 out of 5, we're sitting at this table and we pray before food, and we have dinner and we talk. And last night we sat right here and talked and played games while we were sitting at this table. And I think about the chances I was given, and then having this nucleus family. So anything I can do, I'll keep it. And how I can raise my child to see things through a Christian lens, but to have grace for people that are in where I was at 16, because me now and me at 16 were two different people, and I didn't know what works were happening inside of me. Luckily, they were being done. So my first job, I think, as a Christian that God has given me is these children, to keep house here with their mother and have a good Christian relationship with them. Also, the two of them, to show them what, a Christian father should be. Give my daughter an example how a man should be with their mother and treat her. And my son, a good example on how he treats his future wife. That I think that's my number one. I may work for a church, I go to church, I serve at our church. I'm there 6 days a week, most weeks, and it's everything. And I would give up all my time for it. But my number one job, I think, that I feel that has been spoken to me more than enough, is to, become the buffer between a generation of my family that it was a little bit rougher, and I think it could have continued on that cycle of being the non-Christian, church-going, a little bit rougher family, and then leading into this now where we have a great nucleus. Our family is pretty gelled up, and so I want to keep that together to hopefully spring forward a new generation, even past my son, that keeps that going. So I think that's my first goal, no matter what is going on in our church and what needs to happen there. If I can't be here for them doing this, then that's number one to me.
Yeah. If I can offer you some words of encouragement before we wrap. The first is, it's really easy for any of us to look back on our past and experience guilt, shame, or embarrassment, because certain wrongs we committed fall into one of those buckets. And so first word of encouragement is that it was the broken version of us that made the decision to turn to God. It wasn't the version of us now that is faithful. It was the broken version of us that did that. So we should be willing to extend grace to ourselves the way we extend grace to others. The second is, Doug, it only takes one person in one family to shift the trajectory generationally of that family. And from we this is the first time we've met, but I've heard a lot about you too, and you're the one that has shifted the trajectory of your family, and it's something you should absolutely be proud of, and you should hold your head high.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's been quite a ride, and I just don't know where it's going to end up. But I keep saying, I'm not going to do anything, apply anything, unless I feel like the ghost is speaking to me to do a new role, go to a new place. I'm going to sit back and listen, because I have a feeling that as long as I'm patient and try to listen, the doors that God wants me to go through, I'll be patient and wait for them. They'll open, and
No
I'll
doubt.
go that way, because this has been so much more rewarding than the first, we'll say, 33 years of my life, give or take. These last 7 have been just so rewarding. So it's a no-brainer for me. I mean, I'm just excited to see where this goes.
It's going to be great. I love your motto. Let's make the second half of life better than the first. So thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. Would you mind praying us out?
Yeah, sure. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing Ed and I together. It has been wonderful that you have put us in line with each other, allowed us to come here and talk and get to know, and hopefully just spread your message throughout this world. Lord, this is a time when it is needed, and I just hope that one word of anything I've said can go out and just meet somebody at their need, and we can just help them grow within their faith, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Doug, that was awesome. Thank you again for your time and sharing your story and testimony. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
God bless.
Yeah.
You can contact the show at itsnotmycredittotake.com. We'd love to hear from you. God bless.